Hi, I'm Tori, and I left MAGA.
Hey guys, Rich coming to you here at leavingmaga.org with the Midas Touch Network. We got a brand new Leaving MAGA testimonial for you today. I want to bring her in. Her name is Tori Hurst. She's from the great state of Texas. She reached out to us after seeing a story that we had put out there along with our other testimonials, which you can find at leavingmaga.org. Tori, first off, thank you for being here today. Really appreciate you reaching out to us and having the bravery to do this. Let's just get right into this. Tell us what it was about the MAGA community and Trump's campaign that you found alluring and why you gravitated to it.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of people talk about MAGA being like the party for people who feel left behind. And I grew up really, really poor. Um, and a lot of the people in my life who showed kindness to me were MAGA. So I was kind of told that the way to be successful was to be a Republican and to vote for Trump and to do MAGA things. And when he first ran, it was my first election where I was allowed to vote. So I remember voting for him and feeling really proud and like, hey, I did the right thing. I'm gonna finally be able to not live paycheck to paycheck anymore. Like he's gonna do great things because this is what every trusted adult in my life was telling me.
Yeah, I think that so the economic worries that a lot of people had in supporting Trump, I feel like those were and are valid reasons. I don't think that candidate Trump then or President Trump now actually has any solutions for working families and for small business owners. But I don't say it as a self defense, but I do think that it was a legitimate and good reason that people had for supporting Trump at the time. You know, seeing jobs go overseas, watching once vibrant communities get hollowed out. I knew people who had lost business to foreign nations from their own small business. So Trump really spoke to, hey, the system is rigging it, or the system is rigged against so many working Americans, lower income Americans, small business owners. And I don't I don't know that Hillary really spoke to that as well as she could have in hindsight. Now, of course, looking back on it, if I could do it again, I would have voted for Hillary and for Joe in 2020. But talk a little bit about how you feel like your upbringing shaped some of your political beliefs that led you to go and support Trump.
Yeah. So, like I had mentioned, I grew up really poor. I lived in Florida at the time, and my family, it was so bad that we didn't have electricity sometimes in the summer. And so I spent a lot of time really angry at systems. Like I was told welfare is supposed to save people and get them out of poverty. But here I am, a 16-year-old girl, and I can't even afford a new pair of jeans to go back to school this school year. So I'm being told like these systems are here to save you, they're here to protect you, but I felt really left behind by them. And that was, like I said, a lot of time where my friends' parents stepped up. And I'm not going to discredit the kind things they did for a child in poverty, but I do think that they used that as a way to teach me what they felt was right. And so I didn't take the time to develop my own like political opinions. And my parents never talked about politics really. So, like I said, I was really resentful of my parents for our financial situation. Um, I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17. I was 17 when I moved out. And I was living in this little trailer in the back of an old woman's property, God bless her. Um, and like I said, I just really wanted to not have to buy my food at the dollar store anymore. And here comes Trump saying, hey, I'm going to make America great again. And that you have to couple that with, I was never really taught American history, right? Like this whole make America great again thing. What period of time were we talking about? Because in my mind, I'm just thinking about white families specifically, and I'm a big fan of owning my biases. Um, White families specifically being able to live on one income, like a dad working, mom staying home, being able to have a pension, have a car, have a house. And I was like, man, I want that. Like, I want to not have to work 60 hours a week and go to college to be able to afford food not from the Dollar Tree. And you couple that with the people in my life that I saw that were successful, and they were MAGA. Like they were, I remember specifically one of my friend's parents had a cup that said the liberals are coming with a Paul Revere on it. And that was my favorite coffee cup. I thought it was so funny. Ironically, now that I've changed, I still want the coffee cup. Um, but it was like the perfect storm of I just don't want to be poor anymore. Here's this man that's from outside the system. I know he has name recognition. I remember him from The Apprentice growing up. And again, like I was young when all of that happened. So in my mind, he's super successful. He had a whole TV show where he fired people all the time. Like he has to be the best. And I didn't know about the bankruptcies or any of that.
Yeah, I think that again, you're illustrating how there was a part of Trump's campaign then, and I think it was applicable in 20 and 24, where apolitical Americans were attracted to his candidacy. And you're saying it here about him being an outsider. And again, I will not say this as a self-defense, but to try to demythologize a little bit some of the reasons that people said, yeah, I'm going to go with Trump, especially in 16, is that, yes, he ran as a Republican, but he was a true outsider. He had no government, no military, and no political experience whatsoever. And I felt like, and I'm curious about your feelings on this also, I felt like we needed somebody who would come in and essentially obliterate the established political order. I felt like both parties were the same. I felt like they neglected most Americans, just like you said a moment ago, feeling unheard, unseen, left behind. Those feelings and phenomena are real, and they're valid. Did you feel that way with Trump? I know, what you're saying about maybe not knowing a lot about his own history, but given your upbringing, did you share some of those sentiments I did, which is, yes, we need somebody to come in and just take a sledgehammer and a flamethrower to the system?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and he made a lot of promises like that. And I want to touch on something you said about not making excuses. I'm a big fan of accountability. I made my choices and I held my beliefs. So me sharing this is not me making any excuses for that. Like I have a lot of work to do to make up for those choices. However, I do want people to understand how you get there. And I guess that probably goes better at the end of why I left. But yeah, he came in, he made a lot of promises about I'm an outsider, I can see all these problems because I'm an outsider, and I'm not going to take their money. And I was like, well, he's an underdog. What does he have to lose? He's not taking any money from it. He just wants to help the American people.
I almost feel like in this conversation, I'm putting myself back in 2015 and 16. And some of those feelings of exhilaration, some of those feelings of we're making history, even right now, they're being conjured because I remember very well how I felt. And I felt like, okay, this, just like you said, this person doesn't need the job, doesn't need to do it. Thus, he must be doing it for the right reasons to make the country a better place for all Americans. For me, Make America Great Again was not nostalgic. I was 39 years old in 2016, so I'm now giving my age out there for everyone. For me, it was, and this sounds a little bit delusional to say this, but it's the truth. I felt like Make America Great Again was actually very progressive
Yeah.
and forward facing. I felt like it would be a new epoch in American history. In fact, I even went so far to say that Trump's victory in 2016 was like a second founding of America.
Wow.
That's what I thought. I thought it was that momentous of a moment. And so talk a little bit about after 2016. So we're on the winning side. You and I are both on the victorious side. We're vindicated. We're validated. The entire world was against us. And it's quite literal to say that we won against the entire world. What was life for you like in MAGA after 2016? What were some of the media that you were consuming? What were some of the activities that you engaged in?
Yeah. So ironically, the day I went to go vote, it was the first time I ever got a promotion. I was 19 years old and I was finally promoted to a manager within the insurance company I was working for. And I was like, man, Trump is already doing it for me. Like, this has to be a cosmic sign. Um, and I remember when he won, things got easier, obviously, because I started doing better financially. And it really like helped feed into that idea of this was the right choice. And then you start, like I talked about the perfect storm. The first Trump YouTuber I remember watching was John Burke. I don't even know if he's like mainstream anymore, but that's who got me into it. And I have family who's military. So John Burke was actually on a military base when I happened to be visiting in Louisiana. And I was still dealing with a lot of like big feelings about my upbringing and finally starting to be able to afford things. And I remember talking to him for a minute. And am I allowed to cuss? He said, heck those liberal nerds. And I felt so vindicated because he was like in my mind, this famous dude who was showing me kindness and compassion. And that fell into, I watched a lot of Ben Shapiro. I lived for a Ben Shapiro gotcha moment. Like, that made me feel so superior to everyone else, so much smarter, those little gotcha traps. And that's a big thing with MAGA, are those gotcha traps. I loved him. Oh my gosh, there's a gentleman, his first name is Terrence. I don't remember his last name anymore. Loved him. And he was a black man who supported MAGA. So I used that to like fuel my idea that Trump can't be racist. Look at this black man on YouTube sitting here defending him and like sharing his ideals. There's no way that this is as bad as it's being painted.
Yeah, you see those names, a lot of the testimonials that we've done, which everyone can find at leavingmaga.org. You can also find them at our Leaving MAGA playlist at the Midas Touch Network. A lot of the same names keep popping up, Tori. You're talking about Ben Shapiro. It's like a Charlie Kirk moment at the Turning Point events. We own the libs in the debate. The liberals are coming, right? Paul Revere. And even though I didn't think of it this way, and I don't think most in MAGA think of it this way now, the shared enemy of MAGA is liberalism and liberal democracy, because people feel like liberal democracy has failed them and failed the country. And maybe you felt that way also
Well,
before
and
Trump, right? Maybe you felt like this, right? The system
yeah.
let you down. And here came a guy who said, hey, let's tear it down. Let's build it anew. And so these names, the way that you're citing them, these are the influencers so many others have mentioned in the stories that they've told. So talk a little bit about why you left. What
Yeah. So
put us in your life at that time, when the doubts commenced, how you were feeling, some of the moments that made you start to think and I should say rethink your support and belief system.
yeah. So, and this is a spot where I see a lot of people say that nobody cares to leave MAGA until it personally affects them. And I'm kind of against the grain on that, right? So COVID happened and I lost my mom and my grandpa within 2 weeks of each other. And we don't know why my mom passed, but we know my grandpa was confirmed to have contracted COVID. And even then, people were saying, oh, COVID's fake, it's made up. And I was like, you know what? I don't really care why he died. All I know is I'm sad that he did die. So that didn't really affect me. I started to question the followers a little bit then. I was like, yeah, but people are like really sick. Why are we saying this doesn't exist? And that kind of started the cracks. As far as like the moment where I was like, okay, no, this is not it. I was in college. I was on a road trip actually. And I'd been assigned to watch a PBS documentary about January 6th. And I was sitting next to my now husband, and he was never MAGA. We just didn't talk politics. And he never forced me to leave MAGA either, to his credit. But we were in the car, he was driving, and I was watching this documentary for college. And I remember them talking about the Proud Boys. And I was like, what are the Proud Boys? What is this? And watching that documentary, I learned a lot of really, really not so nice truths about Trump. And that led me down this path of asking questions. Did this really happen? Could I have context on this? Another example is like when Trump mocked that disabled reporter. I never saw that until 2022. I had no idea that happened until I was already on my way out. So January 6th happened. I had no idea it happened. I really thought it was like a peaceful protest, and everyone in my echo chamber was MAGA. So nobody was talking about it in a negative light. It kind of just came and went. It was just another day for me. When I found out what really happened, like, sorry, I'm rambling now. When I found out what really happened, that's when I started to question it. I watched the rest of that documentary. I found out how violent it really was. And that's another thing is like at the core of MAGA, I believe that people want to love America, not the America that is, but the idea of America, right? And I love the idea of America. So to think that people could go and assault like the foundations of what this country is, like they preach constitutionalism, but then disregard it when it does not suit them. And that was a big breaking point for me. What were the contradictions? Once I saw them, like there were so many contradictions.
We actually just released, thank you for that. And our condolences to you for
Thank you.
your mom and your grandpa. Thank you for sharing that. Because I'm sure that it's quite difficult to relive those moments. And COVID was a breaking point, or I should say it started the breaking point for so many. It was for me also. I gave a video testimonial at the DNC convention this past summer. And I said in there that, you know, where a lot of my doubts started was really with Trump's COVID mismanagement. There were other reasons as well. And you and I left almost around the same time because I have a leaving MAGAversary date. It's my official departure date. I published a mea culpa on August 30th, 2022. And you were right around that time also.
November of 2022.
Yeah, so I'm August, you're November. So, and now here we are 3 years later talking about our stories of leaving MAGA. You know, this is really a testament to your courage in telling your story. And I want to segue into that as we look to wrap up here. So why do you feel the need to speak out? You know, why do you want to tell your story for others? You know, what do you feel like you really want others to know and hear?
Yeah. I think that people assume that you go into MAGA and you're just this hate-filled individual. And that for me, again, that's not true. Like I was volunteering at animal shelters. I would volunteer for anything, really. I was a loving friend. I was a loving girlfriend. I was a good employee. MAGA was never about hate in the beginning for me. MAGA was about what opportunities it could provide to me, which is selfish. And I'm a big fan of owning that. I want people to know that the reason that I speak out about MAGA is not to absolve myself of that. It's because there are people who are starting to see those cracks, who are starting to kind of take that exit out. And the only reason I was ever comfortable, like really denouncing MAGA was because my now husband allowed me a space to like ask those really tough questions and feel safe. So I think for us to end kind of what's going on there and get people to leave the movement, it takes them feeling safe and having a space to ask those questions. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to allow them that space, right? Like real harm has been done. But it does mean that if you are somebody who's willing and able to put yourself out there and have those conversations and allow those people a chance to ask their questions, we can eventually get him out of office, get more people on our side, and start to make those changes that we wanted to see in MAGA. Like I'm a huge fan of, I just want everyone to do well and be happy and safe and healthy. And obviously MAGA is not the way, but how do we get there if we can't get those people off of his side?
We're with Tori Hurst from the great state of Texas. I want to thank you again for being here with us and sharing your odyssey with us. I like to close every episode with a positive affirmation and say, I'm Rich and I left MAGA.
Hi, I'm Tori and I left MAGA.
Tori, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment down below. Also, visit us at leavingmaga.org. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. Follow us on our socials. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also at our site, we've got an ebook called My MAGA Odyssey. And also, we've got a guide for friends and family for those of you out there who have loved ones and close ones who are still in the thrall of MAGA. As always, appreciate your support. Thanks so much for watching.
Love this video? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch and help us blow past 1 million followers.